This podcast was recorded before the COVID-19 outbreak. We hope you enjoyed this armchair traveling experience. Hey, it's Shellcast, the podcast of the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel. Come along and discover the best of Lee County, Florida. I'm your host, Jackie Parker. Here's your sound guy, Ray Saraceno.
Hello.
Lee County is located along southwest Florida's Gulf Coast, about 2 hours south of Tampa. And now that we've got the formalities out of the way, I'd like to introduce you to our guest today, Captain Brian Holaway.
Hey.
And he's going to take us on a boat ride. It's just after 7 a.m., it's mid-November, and the boat we're on is Captain Brian's 24-foot center console that was built locally in 1981. Since then, it's been rebuilt by local craftsmen, and Captain Brian has owned the boat since 1996. We're looking at a lot of birds in the air, and what are we seeing?
Yeah, this time of the morning's great. We're seeing a lot of birds that are just kind of getting up, taking flight. We've got a bunch of white ibis, probably about 20 or 30 of them that are just coming by. Some immature ones. The ibis are a white bird with a pink bill. The immatures are more brown and white, and we got both of them actually coming by right now. Also had an osprey fly overhead, and they're one of the birds that you see out here in the sound. We're looking at an osprey nest right now with 2 ospreys in it. They'll have their chicks here in in the springtime. So look at all, we got a lot of white ibis over here, right by the osprey. So this time of day is great. A lot of birds. We are looking at a lot of brown pelicans, and we've got a lot of younger ones. And some of the identifying marks for the young brown pelicans is they have their bellies are white. That's all their feathers are white, and their heads will be brown. The older brown pelicans will have the white head and then the gray belly. So some of those are kind of that we're looking at are in between, but quite a few young brown pelicans here. Actually have a lot of also these taller wading birds. The great egret, which are white. They have a yellow beak. They stand about probably 3.5 feet tall. So you can actually hear the sounds of some osprey too in the background. A lot of really good bird life this morning here at Redfish Pass.
Captain Brian Holaway is a Florida master naturalist, and what that means is he is taking courses developed by the University of Florida, extension offices, and organizations in the state to promote awareness, understanding, and respect of Florida's natural world. He takes people out on boat rides around the area to do shelling, to look at nature, and it's just a really wonderful experience. There are a lot of captains out here that do this sort of thing. Brian focuses on nature specifically. Brian, why is it important to get out early to see wildlife?
Well, getting out early has a lot of benefits, actually. A lot of people don't necessarily like getting up early, but once they do and get out here like we're out here right now, the sun's coming up over the water. There really isn't, actually, there goes a stone crab boat going by. Check his stone crab traps. That's about the only people that are out here. Besides the birds, there's some white pelicans flying by up in the air. Getting up early, you've got a lot of really neat things to look at. The birds are moving around here at first light, and all the birds, you can hear the bird sounds actually as we're going along. It's just a really nice time of day to be out on the water. First thing, first light.
The idea for this podcast is for potential visitors to Lee County, Florida, to use this as another resource to learn about the area and plan a visit to Lee County. One thing while you're here is at least one morning, get up early and come out on the water. What are we looking at?
We got a little pod of dolphin out in front of us, probably about 6 of them. You can see as they come up, take a breath, you can see the little mist from the blowhole. Yeah, these are the Atlantic bottlenose dolphin. And here in the Pine Island Sound area, we have a resident population of 600. And these guys are one of 2 groups in the world of dolphins in an area that don't migrate because they have such an abundant food source. There's a group in Australia and a group right here in Pine Island Sound. They eat like 20 to 30 pounds of fish a day. estuary is where the salt and the fresh water meet. So you have the Caloosahatchee River going right into Pine Island Sound. Here's a little salt story for you. From where we're at right here in Redfish Pass, we're at the north end of Captiva Island here in Southwest Florida. So from where we're sitting right now, we're just outside of the Sound. We're just out into the Gulf of Mexico. And if we go 120 miles south, you'd be in Key West by water. Another 90 miles and you'd be in Cuba. Well, back in the 1700s and 1600s, the Spanish-Cuban fishermen would come up from Cuba and fish these waters and take literally thousands of pounds of fish, primarily mullet, back to Cuba. And they would, and there's records of it all. They would control the salt down in Cuba. So they'd say, okay, Jackie, we're going to give you X amount of salt. Therefore, you can bring so many pounds of fish back. Well, those guys, when they were here, would make salt. They would get salt and let it dry, just like how it just kind of some of it got on you right now, or on the boat. They would let it dry, and they would take some contraband, extra salted fish back to Cuba.
Wow.
By using the salt here in Pine Island Sound. We're out here in the Gulf, and back in 1921, a hurricane actually split Captiva Island in half. And back in 1920s, on Captiva, you had a fisherman and you also had farmers. And there was a working farm, actually called the Mickle Farm, that got taken away in that 1921 hurricane and created what is now called Redfish Pass. So ever since that 1921 hurricane, it's been called Upper or North Captiva. And North Captiva is 4.5 miles long, and it is 700 acres. Out of that 700 acres, 500 is all protected. It's all state park. So the island kind of divides into 3 different areas. Where we're at right now is towards the southern end of the island, and there's 11 homes down here, and then the middle part is state park, the middle part of the island, and then on the very north end, they have over 300 houses, and the only way up here is either by boat or by airplane.
I guess the southern end of North Captiva, and you were saying that most of the folks don't live here year-round?
Yeah, the southern end of the island here, where there's just 11 homes, aren't here year-round. They'll be here off and on. And at this end of the island, too, I might add that these houses are all ran off generators. They have power that they got in the early 80s on the north end, but they knew they could never get it down here at the south end. So all the homes here, you're on a barrier island, and you create your own power. They use propane and solar.
Wow. So they've got to bring everything over with them, their groceries and whatever. I mean, just to live here for a weekend. I mean,
it's a lot of coordinating, a lot of work. You bring everything in, you load it in your boat, then you load it down the dock, carry it down the dock, load it into your house, and it's a little more involved.
It probably makes them buy into the whole less is more theory pretty quickly.
Yeah, you get everything organized pretty efficiently.
Wow. And this area, we're out here. It's sort of the end of November, and it's about 60 degrees out here on the water. Just a really light breeze, sunny skies. It's just a beautiful way to experience Southwest Florida. If you're planning a visit here, definitely get out on the water, because that is what this area is known for. Lee County, Florida is known for its nature, just the wildlife, marine life, everything. And there's so much to do on the beach. There's so much to do by boat. The inland properties, there's shopping, fine dining, and all that stuff. But definitely plan to spend time out on the water. Every day is unique. Every time of day is unique. You just never know what you're going to see. It's just a priceless way to experience this area. We're still hanging out in the Gulf, and we are coming upon one of my favorite things to see on a map of North Captiva. So you can get to Captiva by boat, and you can also get to it by airplane, and this is called Salty Approach.
Back on the charts, it's the airstrip, It was 2,200 feet long. It's currently 1,800, and it's has water on both sides. It runs from east to west, and it's a grass airstrip, and it's been up here since the 1960s. And like she said, it's called the Salty Approach, which is a good name for it.
I love it. I love it. Have you ever landed a plane here, or have you been on a plane here and landed?
I haven't. I have some friends that have. I'm gonna have to do it, but
I would think that might be one of those things, life experiences that would just kind of take your breath away. Of just like, okay, we're landing. Are we stopping? Are we stopping? Yes, we stopped.
all right, we're just up here at Cayo Costa, and up here at Cayo Costa is like I said before, my favorite spot. And one of the many unique things about it are the plants. There's 13 different ecosystems here on Cayo Costa, and we're in an area where we have one of my favorite plants, which are many, but this one is called wild coffee. Florida has actually 6 different wild coffees, and this is I like the Latin name, Cicatora nervosa. How about that? Wild coffee right here. It gets little berries on it, and it's a waxy leaf, very waxy, firm, and like all coffees, it grows in the shade. But native plant, wild coffee.
Does it smell like coffee? Is it that's just?
It doesn't really have that smell like you think, but just has little red berries. There's actually some red berries here you can see, but they'll get really, really ripe. There's one right there. It's kind of almost a magenta color.
Uh-huh. I see it. Yeah. Can you eat them?
You can. They're kind of bitter.
Okay. All right. I won't.
Yeah, one of the many native plants. Also going by some sea grape, which is a big broad leaf. Sea grape tree. It's great.
So we're walking out of the middle of Cayo Costa out onto the beach. This is just glorious. My goodness. One of my favorite sights, Brian, is that curve up there on Cayo Costa, over here on the right.
Yep.
That bend, is it a bend or a curve? What do you call that? I call it a bend, I guess.
A bend, yep. It's a bend. We're looking at a bend, but between us and the bend is just all beautiful sea oats up on the beach dunes. And this time of year, all summer, it's gorgeous. Just beautiful sea oats. Beautiful thing about being on the beach is just the first ones, you'll see all tracks and all new shells from the night before.
So it is my opinion that Captain Brian Holaway is one of the best shellers I've ever come across. He finds the most amazing shells, and we're going to put him to the test today and see what he finds. It's just always the stuff he puts on his Facebook page and on his Wildlife Wednesdays, and we'll talk a little bit about those in a minute. But he just finds just the most beautiful, amazing, big shells. So we'll see what happens.
All right, we're just walking on the beach here up at Cayo Costa and came across a nice little find. This is a bivalve shell. It's called a stiff pin shell. Stiff pin shell, it's kind of a brownish, has little spines on the top of it. The very inside of it has an iridescent shell, and people often think this is the mother of pearl, but it's actually the pin shell. And these guys will anchor themselves down in the mud, and they have what anchors it down into the mud at the base of it. It's called the hibiscus, and that is also what they call sea silk. They will make actually fiber out of it. And over in Spain, this pin shell gets to be over a foot long, a foot big, and they have and there's people over there that have traditionally used this to make fabric from the hibiscus of the pin shell.
Have you done anything with the Shell app? The Bailey Matthews Shell Museum, they've got the Shell app.
Yeah.
You know all the shells.
I do, but that is a great app. It is a great app, and the pictures are great. Jose, everybody at the museum has done a super job on that.
Yeah,
I highly recommend it. Yeah,
I'm a big fan too, and
fan.
it's something that I've used with 4-year-old family members, and it's just a great way to learn about the shells. I love that identify button. You hit it, and it's like, what is it going to be? And you learn a lot too. It's really cool.
We've had some strong winds, so we get some sea urchins that come up, along with like angel wing shells that are really light, that'll go up really high. But this is a little sea urchin, and it's been up here on the beach a little while. It's dried out, and has little spines on it. And actually, there's shell crafters that will use these little spines in their sailor's valentines. Sailor's valentines are these little octagon boxes that have all sorts of different designs in them. Originated back in Barbados in the 1800s, but they use some of these spines in their shell craft. So a cool little story with the sea urchin.
Oh, you're rubbing it off.
Yeah, right now I'm just kind of taking some of the spines off. So a lot of times people don't really, they go, oh, that's a sea urchin. I've never seen it with the spines on or the other way. But the shell crafters will get these little spines, take them off like this. I'm just kind of rubbing it between my thumb and forefinger, and the spines come right off. We just picked up is a juvenile Florida fighting conch, and this is about as big as they get. They get up to like 3 inches, but this is a gastropod, a Florida fighting conch. Good little find.
Just a little PSA on when you find live shells versus dead shells.
Yeah, Lee County, you can't collect any live shells. So if you're in doubt, put it back. Live shells would have the living mollusk inside, and that goes for sand dollars as well. Sand dollars, if they're live, are kind of like furry and brownish. So no live shells. In doubt, put it back gently.
Exactly, and putting it back doesn't mean throwing it back into the water.
No, just kind of setting it back in the water. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want to throw them. I was talking about shelling, and I'm really fortunate I get to do what I get to do. I've been doing it for 25 years. You know, I walk the beach just like we're walking now, and I get to talk to people, and I get to know them. And I have shellers that have been shelling for that many years. Some people are in their 70s. That have been shelling. Their parents brought them here when they were a little kid, and they're shelling. Could be male or female. But I walk on the beach, talk. I get to hear their stories about maybe the first little shell they found back in 1950, and that's their favorite shell, and here's why. So I do a lot of listening when we're shelling, because we're walking along, and I get to hear everybody's stories. So that's one of the great things about my job and what I get to do, and they come back year after year. So I get to see them this summer. You know, speaking of that, I had out the mom, the daughter, who was in her early 30s, and the daughter's daughter, who was 10. Well, the daughter, when she was 10, I had her out. So I had 3 generations. It's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
So I love that stuff. You know, even on the beach, like where we're at now, people get into their, you know, they'll be shelling along, and they just get into their little zone. So sometimes I'm just like, back off, and they just kind of they come down here just for that. They're off on this beach, walking along, looking at shells. You got the sound of the waves, and they just get lost in that, or they'll sit and talk to me, and I'll just walk and talk for 45 minutes or an hour. So it's kind of just getting into that, getting away and just relaxing and just enjoying the surroundings.
Mm-hmm. And those are the experiences that people remember. And those are the experiences that you help provide, and a lot of times why people come back. And it's just a great way to experience nature. You're out here, it's free. Shelling is free. It doesn't cost anyone anything, and you can do it no matter age, whatever.
And I love when I get people that have been shelling for a long time, because they have a story about the different shells. They may be looking for one special shell. So we may be out for 3 or 4 hours and find one perfect shell that they've wanted to add to their collection, which is great. It could be a lemon pecten, something that you don't see that often, something that they don't have in their collection. Those are some of the most treasured shells, along with their shell stories.
So tell me about your Wildlife Wednesdays. You've been doing that for a couple of years on Facebook, and your Facebook page is Captain Brian on the Water. But on Wednesdays, you do a special Wildlife Wednesday. Tell us about that.
Yeah, every Wednesday I like to highlight some different type of wildlife or plant, whatever it is, that you might see here in Southwest Florida. It started from one of my good friends, Dave Godfrey. He does a Friday fishing report at Jensen's.
Quit wishing, go fishing.
That's it. That's my buddy Dave. And I'm like, we were driving home together one night, and I'm like, Dave, I'm gonna do this thing called Wildlife Wednesday, because I wanted to, ask him, and I wanted to ask for his blessing, because he started that. And I'm like, yeah. And then it just kind of, I just had the idea for Wildlife Wednesday, and it took off. Kind of, a lot of people really enjoy it. It's really rewarding. Mm-hmm. So I have fun doing them. Usually they're not anything crazy. If I mess up, or we just do the first take, and just, that's the beauty of it. We see something wildlife, and okay, here we go. Mm-hmm. Here it is.
And I've seen it where you have kids who are on your boat.
Oh yeah, they're the best.
Yeah,
kids are the best. And now I have clients that, we want to do a Wildlife Wednesday. I'm like, okay, we'll find something. But the kids are the best. They just tell it like it is, and this is slimy, Captain Brian. What is this? Yes, it is slimy. So we just love the kids.
And you've got a favorite videographer.
Yeah, that would be my daughter, Sage. She is great.
So we're just going to kind of wrap up here. So we've been all around Pine Island Sound and dipped a little bit into the Gulf of Mexico today. We were at North Cap. We were at the southern end of Cayo Costa. Got some shells.
Yes,
got some good shells.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, and the weather's just been excellent, as it pretty much always is here in Southwest Florida. But I just want to thank you so much for your time. And if there's one parting thing that you'd like to tell people, who are looking to visit Southwest Florida, any parting words, Brian?
I'll just come down and enjoy the wildlife, the nature, the water, however you can do it. Just get up early like we did, even though you're on vacation. Enjoy the sunrise, the sounds, the smells. Just get somewhere by the water. Doesn't mean you have to go out on a boat. Just get up early and just get out there and just enjoy it.
Yeah, it's really that simple. Thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it. Ray, thank you as always for your excellent tech.
You're certainly welcome.
And thanks to our VCB colleague, Courtney Herschel, for the theme music. Thank you for listening to Shellcast. We'll catch you again next time. Want to learn more about Cayo Costa State Park? The state park's website at floridastateparks.org/Cayo Costa has lots of information to plan your visit. Also, check out our Shellcast Extra and listen along as we take a tram ride with park volunteer Dennis Romick. We've got another Shellcast Extra for you that's all about Pioneer Cemetery and one of the more well-known people to be buried there, Captain Peter Nelson. Shellcast, the official podcast of the beaches of Fort Myers and Sanibel, is produced by the Lee County Visitor and Convention Bureau in Fort Myers, Florida. Shellcast is available wherever fine podcasts are downloaded and at fortmyers-sanibel.com. If you have any questions or have a suggestion for an episode of Shellcast, please email us at shellcastthepodcast@gmail.com.